knowledge ain't free, gotta pay attention. You can't buy grind, can't buy ambition. It was pain, not love, writing in the kitchen. Most gonna hear what I'm saying, but who's gonna listen? I use music as a way of life. It's more than words I deliver on the mic. What's the details? If no CDs, what's your email? Living missions from first listen, you knew that this was different. Knowledge ain't free, gotta pay attention. You can't buy vision, eyes focus on roads is bumpy. We call mistakes potholes. Riches being healthy, time balance with a good soul. Where's my time gone? I'm in the zone, not figured out. Peso bets ever took a harder route. Truth to talk about, but why lie? I survive off myself. CD burner in the sky is my help and nothing else. And knowledge ain't free. And knowledge ain't free, gotta pay attention. And knowledge ain't free, gotta pay attention. Knowledge ain't free, gotta pay attention. Days going by, I just get better. Nights going high, I adapt better. No bad neighborhood, the energy is you. I have been around the worst and the sales always come through. Judgmental situations makes the mind blind. Give you good music, all I see in my sharp eyes. Knowledge ain't free, gotta pay attention. I keep pushing, I'm the pusher with good intention. There's no weakness, being self. I play the game I create. Stay focused, get self-paid. Audio knowledge built from a wise design. A man's brain stuck in his own times. I'm education plus entertainment. All mistakes waving. Those hard times made me more patient. The best ever, there is no debating. Unsigned or signed, you sign for a loss waiting. If it's competition, but now this is music for respect. Knowledge ain't free. Take cash, no check. Yeah. And knowledge ain't free, gotta pay attention. And knowledge ain't free, gotta pay attention. Listen. And knowledge ain't free, gotta pay attention.
Shalom and greetings to everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Fire Talk Radio Podcast. I am your host, Don Yehuda. Today we'll be delving deep into a sensitive and critical discussion. This is real prevalent to what's going on today in so-called Black America with the glorification of self-destructive behavior, the single-parent households, the high incarceration rates, and the epidemic on black crime that still continues to this day. These are societal problems that are not new. In fact, they mirror the warnings and conditions that are actually described within the Bible. By examining certain scriptures, technically you can read from front to back in most cases and find a correlation or a reflection of what's going on today in the scriptures. But we're going to be looking at, a couple of verses out of the books of Isaiah, the book of Deuteronomy, and others. So that way we can show that these things that are happening now were prophesied back then to happen, because there's nothing new under the sun. We'll uncover how ancient prophetic warnings can shed light on our current situations, right? And I wanted to really just touch base with my community, because just looking at how everything is transpiring throughout the world, we have the wars going on over in the so-called Middle East, over in Ukraine. We have threats of nuclear armament being used. We have America's favorability at an all-time low amongst other nations. The impending collapse of the American economy, and so forth and so on. I look at our community and we're no closer to being able to help one another in these possible scenarios that's on the horizon, like we were in yesteryear. And I think it's very, it's very profound that we don't actually see this. Most of us don't. There's a nice pocket of brothers and sisters that see this, know what's coming down the pipeline. Even if you do not believe in scriptures, you look at history, and history tells you that, you know, these type of things happen at a certain time within each nation. A nation only has a certain amount of time that it can originate, prosper, and then decline. And then there comes another nation or empire that takes its place. And generally speaking, that's about 250 years, and America is at 248 as we speak. So just from a historical perspective, we should be expecting some type of decline, destruction, or both to be coming very soon on the steps of America. But a lot of people don't think that this type of stuff can happen, particularly my brothers and sisters within the so-called Black community, because a lot of times we're glorifying or attaching ourselves to things that are not relevant to the times, that's not beneficial to us in any way whatsoever. In today's Black communities, we often see elements of culture that celebrate violence, materialism, and disrespect for authority. Music and media play a role in normalizing these behaviors, which in turn reinforces negative stereotypes and self-destructive tendencies. This has led to an increase in crime, broken families, and a diminished sense of communal responsibility. We don't see these things across the board within our communities. What we do see, like I just elaborated, is the celebration of violent and dumbed down music, materialism, disrespect for authority, whether it be the elders within our community or the authorities that set up over us, that's allegedly or supposed to safeguard ourselves and our interests. But a lot of these things don't happen. Why? Because we make very poor decisions within our community. For one, we lack an understanding of things that transpire here in America and abroad, to be honest with you. A lot of our people don't take the time to study. They don't take the time to look at current events and see exactly what's going on, things of that nature. But, you know, I really want to touch base as to why these things are happening, because when you really look at the scenario, right, be avoided if we just listen to wise understanding. But a lot of times, like it's like I've just mentioned, we don't like authority. We don't like to be told what to do. But according to Hosea 4:6, it tells you that my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. What knowledge is that? It is the divine laws that was given to us. Now, I know there's a argument out there rising, bubbling up, that you don't need the scriptures in order to know right from wrong. And in many cases, that's true to a certain degree. And I'm going to explain. A lot of times when we do something wrong, we know within ourselves that it's wrong, right? And we know when we do good, we know that that's a good deed or a good action. But when you're raised in a society that's predicated on all the things that is detrimental to you, such as the music, the artistry, the materialism, the social media, the communications, and everything in between, you start losing focus on what's actually right and what's wrong. A lot of times our people are indoctrinated or subdued into thinking certain things are right or acceptable. I'd rather use that word, acceptable, versus things that are wrong or not acceptable within our community. And this is the knowledge that we lack, because when you look at the understanding that was written down for these times when our people would be mentally destroyed, that we would have something to go back and reference, a codified set of laws that would put us back in place morally and civilly and within our nation of people, something that could galvanize us together, something that would, create a foundation that we can stand on morally and say, this is who we are, and this is what we're going to do, and this is the direction that we're heading in. As of right now, we don't have that. You could just look at, the current climate right now on the political stage, and a lot of people are harping about Trump or Kamala Harris. But I hear nobody harping about what are we going to do within our community, because everything starts at home. We can't go outside of our home and ask our neighbors to fix what's happening within our house. We have to fix what's happening in our house before we can go outside of the house and participate in the community. But we lack that knowledge and that understanding to do that. And so it says, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge. I will also reject thee. So when it says I will reject thee, it means that the Creator is going to allow certain things to transpire within our community and with our people. And I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but it's just like if you have parents who told you, listen, don't go hang out with those guys down the street, because there's always something going on down there. They're involved with drugs, shooting, killings, and so forth and so on. But if you take your happy behind down there, then guess what? Your parents don't have any dealings with you doing that. That's your own decision. And whatever transpires, it transpires. So if you go down there and get caught up in the raid, you was not supposed to be down there. If you go down there and happen to get shot, you was not supposed to be down there. So was that your parents' fault, or was that your fault? And I say that because a lot of people, if you look at a lot of debates, topics being talked about on social media, they'll tell you, well, how do you worship a creator, a Elohim that, puts you into captivity or destroys you or this, that, and the third? It's not that the Elohim, Yahuwah, did that. It's because you made the decision to do that, right? It's not the Creator's decision. It's your decision. And a lot of times when we look within our community, we complain, moan, and groan about what's going on in the community, about Pookie and Ray Ray jacking people, shooting people, you know what I'm saying? Creating kids, not taking care of them, so forth and so on. But we're not actively doing anything to change the dynamic of the community. So this is a very big problem. You can't complain about something and not actively make change, because when you don't do anything about it, it's only going to get worse. Silence is agreement, they say. When you're silent against what's going on and you're not taking any actions with it, then you're in agreement with that. So let's go, because I know a lot of people still will say, I can do what I want to do. That scripture is old school. I don't agree with the scriptures. People can, just create their own narrative and things of that nature. And I dig it, but we all have a choice in the things that we do. Whether it's right or wrong, you have a choice. And even the scriptures tell you that you have. So we just got to be more knowledgeable about the decisions that we make, right? So in Deuteronomy chapter 11, starting at verse 26, it says, behold, I set before you this day a blessing and a curse. So we see right here, this is a choice. You're giving the opportunity to choose between a blessing or a curse, reward or consequence, good or bad. So you can't say that you don't have a choice in your actions and the part that you play in this thing we call life. We all have a choice. Even the scriptures tell you have a choice, right? But you have a choice within the paradigm of options that you're given. And that's with anything in life. You have a choice, but you still have to make a choice within a set parameter that's given to you. And it says a blessing in verse 27, a blessing if you obey the commandments of Yahuwah Elohim, which I command you this day. So you'll be blessed if you follow the commandments. What are the commandments? The commandments are to govern your morality. The commandments are for you to make good and wise and just judgments, for you to show discernment, for you to show love to your brothers, for you to be a father or mother within that household, for you to create a nuclear family and not destroy it off of foolish decisions that you make. And verse 28 says, and a curse if you will not obey the commandments of Yahuwah your Elohim, but turn aside out of the way which I command you this day, to go after other gods which you have not known. And this is what a lot of us do, because we've been raised in a society. And I always say this, when you peel the cap back on most of our people, it says made in America. They pull your wig back, it's going to say made in America, because that's where your mindset is at. Your mindset is Americanized. Our culture, our way of living, the way we think, the things that we like and don't like, all of these things and more have been predicated off of the culture that this society has created for us. Remember, we're people with amnesia. Most of us don't know our ancestry. And without knowing your ancestry, you don't know what it is that you or your people were born to do. What did you and your people partake in? What were your customs? What were your beliefs? What was your diet? Who did you worship? Where did you stay? What's your land? What's your inheritance? Who's friend or foe? So forth and so on. These are the things that we don't know. Because like Hosea 4:6 said, we lack knowledge. And in lack of knowledge, guess what? In the Black community, we see a lot of things that we are not supposed to be partaking in, right? So let's take a look at, one instance within our community that has a very strong generational effect on our people. And that's the breakdown of the family unit and the single parent households, right? I want to begin by addressing the breakdown of the nuclear Black family, particularly the consistent rise of single parent households. The erosion of the nuclear family has had devastating impacts on the Black Americans and society, contributing to cycles of poverty, lack of stability, and higher crime rates. This glorification of absentee fathers, which is in particular one of the most detrimental things that's happened within our households, is that the fathers is not there, right? And the normalization of fatherless homes has been particularly destructive to us. Why is that so? Because the father's role, once again, this is why I came on today, because I just had it upon my spirit just to speak on these things. Because when you look at social media, man, I swear to goodness, man, social media is of the devil if used wrong. You see the glorification of not needing one another. Women saying they don't need a man for this, that, and the third. Men saying they don't need a woman for this, that, and the third. More so in my sister's case, though, unfortunately. And statistics show that. So statistics show that there's more of a disconnect with our sisters with the man versus the man with the sisters, right? And a lot of that could be due to trauma that they experience growing up. Because we do know that a lot of our sisters' trust in men have been destroyed from various things they may have with a boyfriend, a husband, or. But we also have to take into consideration that, a lot of these things have been foretold, because without the man in the house, what we see now is the children out of control, right? The children just doing whatever they want to do, because the role of the man was to be, for lack of better words, the enforcer. He's the structure, the disciplinary in the household. He's the breadwinner and the provider. Have you ever noticed that in many cases, men could tell the children to do something, and 9 times out of 10, it's going to happen with little to no effort, meaning we don't have to generally have to get up and physically impose our will upon any child, because just by nature, children are going to do what it is that their father tell them, versus the mother who literally got to beat their backside up and down the house, up and down the street, in order for the kid to still be trying to do what they want to do. And there's a reason for that, because even the woman has a very important role. Matter of fact, her role is very pivotal, because she is the nurturer and the educator within the household. She's the one that kind of guides the next generation as far as their perception and outlook on life and their understanding of things. So there's a synchronicity there that we need both the father and the mother in these households to make it a nuclear household, not a single parent household, right? So when you look at scriptures so forth, like in Isaiah, in the book of Isaiah, it's very pivotal as far as what the prophet was saying and what would take place, because once again, the prophets had a divine connection with the creator and the angelic hosts, and were given certain information that would transpire amongst the chosen. And I'm speaking to my community, but these things are also prevalent and relevant to the other nations also, because it wasn't just meant for God's chosen to do these commandments and follow this divine order. It was meant for all man to do so. This is why he had a chosen, so that they could get themselves together and be the epitome of the creator here on earth in the flesh, to give divine wisdom and understanding to the nations after man fell off of his divine connection with the creator by doing his own thing, being disobedient, right? So somebody had to rein it all back in, and he had a chosen people that was supposed to do that. But even we fell into, foolery and nonsense. And then eventually we started losing our knowledge and our connection with the creator. So now the whole world is upside down, right? And so in Isaiah chapter 3, verse 4, it says, "And I will give children to be their princes," meaning their leaders. The children will be our leaders, and babes shall rule over them, and the people shall be oppressed. So we're talking about people that are held captive, whether physically or mentally against their will, everyone by another, and everyone by his neighbor. His neighbor meaning scriptural wise, his own people. So we're seeing that these people are being held captive by somebody else of their own people. The child shall behave himself proudly against the ancient, meaning that the children are not going to respect their elders. And we see this all the time, every day. It's very rare and seldom that you'll see a child respect their elders. Now, I will also say this. Elders also have to learn how to approach and talk to the children of these days. It's very different than when I grew up. Because when I grew up, elders could discipline you and correct you as though they was your parents. And then if that happened, they would tell your parents what happened, and then you would get, in trouble again once you got home, because for one, you was out there doing something you weren't supposed to be doing, and for two, you embarrassed the family name that somebody had to correct you. So you made mom and dad look bad. So they're gonna make you feel the wrath, because listen, you ain't gonna go out there acting a damn fool, making us look crazy and think ain't nothing gonna happen. But that's not today. You can't correct somebody's child today without repercussions of getting in a fight, it elevated into possible gunfight, stabbing, or something, in between. There's no communal connection there with our people. And so when you read these scriptures, it tells you that when a society turns from wisdom and leadership, they are left in the hands of immature and ill-prepared rulers, which is our kids, who cause chaos and confusion. The children metaphorically become the leaders in these scriptures. And I'm going to say it's not even metaphorically. We see this in real time. We see that children actually run the show. When they get to a certain age, a lot of adults are scared of the children. They scared should tell them that they doing wrong, or they want to be their friends. They want to, roll out with them at the same level that their child is doing. They want to relive their second childhood with their children. And it's nothing wrong with being somewhat of a friend. And I kind of hate even saying that, because technically you're the parent. It is really no friendship. Like, and when I say being a friend, I mean, being cordial, nice, hanging out, doing family functions and things together. But we're not hanging out as though we friends, like you my best friend, because there then becomes a lack of authority and respect. They start seeing themselves on your level, and you already seeing yourself on their level. So when it's time to correct them from doing wrong, they done probably seen you doing some wrong or not acting the way you should have been acting. So when you try to correct them or give them advice, they're not taking what you say serious. They feel like they got more sense than you. So these things you got to be, cognizant of. And it's, it's an ongoing problem that we got to try to correct sooner than later. And these scriptures parallel what our community look like today. All you have to do is have eyes to see and ears to hear. Where the absence of strong, responsible leadership within the family is, especially the role models, has created a void, leaving the younger generation to fend for themselves without proper guidance. I've heard many times on other podcasts, brothers and talking about the OGs. The OGs, they're not OGs like we had OGs. They're not guiding these children right. Well, the OGs in many cases can't guide the children right because the OG's not right. The OG's still hanging on to old ideology that was destructive to the community, that got a lot of the OGs where they were at and still at till this day. In prison, just getting out of prison, not productive, not taking care of business in the divine righteous kind of way. They're still hanging on to neighborhood streets, old affiliations, gang ideology, so forth and so on. And this is not to knock these brothers, but this is a cry to tell these brothers that they got to change their mindset. We got to change our mindset, because if we don't, we're heading down a path of destruction, and we see it. And there's too many things that's happening on the world playground right now that we do not need to be behind the 8 ball as far as basic stuff like self-preservation and, unification within the community. So that way we can try to weather the storm that's coming down the pipeline, because judgment has been rendered upon these nations. And America's judgment is soon to happen. And Americans, especially my community, has not seen war. You have not seen the effects of economic destruction, missiles hitting, anarchy, chaos, famine, pestilence. Like, we haven't seen this on a godly level, yo. We have not seen this on that level. People have seen little spurts here and there, but when this stuff happens, you have to be unified as a people. This is why it tells you to unify. And in Zechariah, you got to unify as a people in order to be able to weather the storm. Because if you don't, guess what? You're going to be the ones that's going to be affected the most, because we already at the bottom of the bottom, right? We already at the bottom of the bottom. And with that being said, when you at the bottom, then there's no one there to help you. There's no one there that's going to lift you out of the. There's no one there that's going to give you what you need. And I mean, as a group of people, it's going to be individuals that, are going to be able to weather the storm for the most part, but the mass majority of us is not. So you got to understand these things. You got to, learn to put your differences aside. You got to learn to step into your positioning as parents and leaders within our community. You got to step into your position as being honest and forthright and having your community's best interests at heart. not your own interests at heart. You know, we got to start coming together on economics. We got to start coming together and repenting up to the Creator, you know, and repent meaning to change our ways, which means you got to identify what it is we doing wrong as a people and as a person. You can't make change without knowing what it is. Like when you go to these Alcoholic Anonymous meetings and things of that nature, they tell you got to identify what the problem is before you can start working on the problem and rectifying it. Because if you don't know what the problem is, how you going to correct it? You're not. So, you know, the results of increased misguided behaviors and violence within our culture promotes dysfunction and instability. So we have to know that these things is detrimental to us, right? So let's go down to the next scripture, because this one right here, we're talking about single family households and how it affects our community. Now check this out, right? Because this is how real the scriptures is. Verse 12. As for my people, children are their oppressors. So once again, it is hitting on it again, all cylinders. The children are the oppressors. So if you had any doubt what it was talking about in the other two scriptures, it's telling you right here that the children are the oppressors. And guess what? Women rule over them. What did this sound like? Single family households. In most single family households, it's the woman that has the children. It's the woman that raises our children. And it's saying right here, our children are our oppressors and the women rule over them. Now, I know right now, a lot of women might hear this and get offended. And I dig it, because you already got enough on your plate. You already got enough Negroes talking this, talking greasy, grimy, slimy, and everything in between about what a woman can't do. You know, everybody pointing the finger at you. But I'm just showing you in the scriptures that is pointing to single family households today. And we can't blame our sisters 100% for this situation. We have to blame the men also, because once again, the men are not in the household. Remember, a nuclear family is a father and mother, a husband and wife that has kids. So if one is not there, then there's a disconnect. And if there's a disconnect, then there's a dysfunction. Now, you're going to have some exceptions where, you know, there was only the mother in the house and she raised, you know, a good family, you know, good, productive children who went on in life and had their own kids and they were productive in the workforce. They didn't cause any issues. You know, if you go by just the standard, you know, observation of what a good person is, they fit that status quo. But a lot of times that doesn't happen in many cases when you have a single family household. You know, we see that in the worst case scenario, the children in these households become the oppressors. They're the ones that's running the street. They're the ones that's causing all of the issues. They're the ones that are the stereotypes that's been put as the face of so-called Black America. And it says, oh, my people, they which lead thee, meaning our leaders, not just the women, but even our leaders, the ones who say that they have our interests at heart, the ones that stand in front of us as a whole and say, follow me. They cause thee to err and destroy the way of thy paths, meaning these Negroes don't got your interests at heart. They only for a bag. They in it for $1. They in it for their own self-indulgence. They might have started out for the people in some cases, but many of them end up only being for self. They've been bought out. They've been deterred in some way, form, or fashion for whatever reason. But whatever the case may be, they destroy your path because they didn't tell you what it was that was needed in order to put you on the right path to success. They didn't put you on the right path to success. They kept you babyfied with these policies and these programs that give you handouts. Now, there's nothing wrong with a handout when you need one, but there's something very wrong when it becomes a lifelong situation. And the powers that be know this. They do the analytics. They do a diligent study, right? They know exactly what they're doing, and the analytics show them exactly what's transpiring within each and every community, whether it's the so-called Black community, so-called Hispanic and Latino community, the white community, so forth and so on. They know what's going on. They compile data. They send feelers out. Every time you fill out information, it's compiled in the database somewhere, and they do the analytics on it. So they know exactly what it is that makes you move, what don't make you move, what provokes you, what makes you docile, what sparks you, what doesn't, so forth and so on. The triggers for society. They got the information. They got the playbook. They know how to use it. They Andy Reid in this thing. They calling the play. They getting the Super Bowl rings on you. They're changing policies. They're incarcerating our youth at an all-time rate, making them slaves. Slavery never ended in America. Read the amendment. Matter of fact, let me pull that up so I can show you. A lot of y'all might not even know that. Slavery never was done away with. They just transformed it to another situation. And this is why a single family household is very detrimental to our community, because without the household, you just lost a brick out of the foundation. That's the cornerstone to the foundation of a nation. Believe it or not. Let me pull that up for you real quick, because I want to show you within the Constitution and the amendments that slavery is still very prevalent today. All right, let's go. I believe it's the 13th Amendment. All right. The 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution abolished slavery and involuntary servitude in the United States, with a few exceptions. So when you abolish something, there's no exception to it. It's supposed to be abolished, done away with for good, like done, finito. But that's not the case. So this is how it reads. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except, see that word, except as a punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So right there, you already see what's going on, right? So they said they abolished it with the exception of being sent to prison. Now, isn't that funny, right? Because when we look in the scriptures right here, Isaiah chapter 42, verse 22, right? It says, but this is a people robbed and spoiled. We've been robbed. We've been robbed of our identity. We've been robbed of our names. We've been robbed of our inheritance, our wealth. We've been robbed of our history, our culture. We've been robbed of everything possible. And when it says spoiled, meaning the byproduct, we're spoiled. This is us, the nigga. For the lack of a better word, that's us, the nigga. That's being spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes. So all of us are snared in some type of hole, whether it's economic, whether it's imprisonment, whether it's mental, miseducation, whether it's the diet with the sickness and diseases. We all are snared in holes, right? And it says, and they are hidden in prison houses, meaning a majority of us are going into prison in some way, form, or fashion, in particular our males, our men, our young boys. That's what the 13th Amendment gets you, because that was a plan. That was a subtle plan in order to put us into slavery, or to keep us into slavery, or to get some dirt on our name. And I'm still on topic because this ties right in to the single family household and to the decisions we make as a people, because these are the consequences. Remember, it said you can choose a blessing or a curse. This is a curse due to our decisions. We decide to be a part of things that celebrate violence and materialism and disrespect of authority. We decide to not want to follow the commandments of Elohim that was given through the prophets. to show that this is what you should do. So that way you don't get lost out here in this world when things get bad and when evil men and women take over and try to switch it up on you. That you'll lose your power, that you'll lose your understanding, that you'll lose everything that I've given to you. That's why I said that they're hid in prison houses. A lot of our people are hid in prison houses. For us to be a small percentage of the populace here in America, we're a very high percentile within the penitentiaries and the county jails. It says that they are a prey. We're a prey. Remember, we just had the Black Lives Matter movement because of the culmination of the police brutality that's been going on way before any brother or sister that they advertised for this. It's just now that we have social media and everything is immediate with camera phones, and all the technology we have, we're able to see things in real time. But these things have been going on for generations and generations and never stopped. And it said none deliver, meaning we don't have any leaders that's going to deliver us. That's why in the last passage it said they lead us astray, they destroy our paths. And then the ones that do have pertinent information for us that can get us out here, we ain't listening. We shuck and jive, we smile and say, yo, he kicking that knowledge, but we ain't following it in many cases. And it says, and none deliver for a spoil and none save restore. So this is what happens. This is what happens when we're unable to get ourselves together and do what we need to do, right? So the next thing I want to touch on real quick is the glorification of the self-destructive culture. Let me see. Where do I want to start with this? Because really, so many things within the culture takes place is self-destructive. It's really not one thing. It's a culmination of many, many different things, right? So let me just go with the incarceration because we're already there. The issue with mass incarceration is deeply embedded within Black America, where disproportionate numbers of Black men and women are incarcerated compared to other ethnic groups. The prison system has become the modern day version of captivity, which I just showed you with Amendment 13, right? That shows you that slavery was supposed to be abolished except for imprisonment. If you're convicted, if they find you convicted, find you guilty. So let's see. Let me see something. What is the trial versus plea deal rate in America? Did I word that right? Let me see. In 2022, nearly 90% of people charged in federal criminal cases pleaded guilty. In general, plea bargaining accounts for almost 98% of federal convictions and 95% of state convictions. Meaning what? Meaning that 9 times out of 10, you're going to plea out to some form of punishment, whether it's probation or imprisonment. And both of those coming with a fine. So they in your pockets and they taking life and time away from you. So this is what I mean when it tells you that, there are disproportionate numbers of our people, our men and women that's incarcerated in some form of fashion more than other ethnic groups. The prison system has become the modern day version of captivity, a cycle that many cannot escape. And this shows you right there. Just pleading out 98% federal convictions and 95% state. Wow. Nobody's hardly going to court because they stack the charges against you. And then if you end up taking it to court and you lose, then they're going to knock you upside your head. They're going to knock your, excuse my word, but dick in the dust. Because you had the audacity to spend the taxpayers' money to fight for your livelihood, for your life. Not because you were trying to not be sitting in a caged jail cell for 10 plus years over something that, you know, you didn't force upon nobody. Now, mind you, I'm not vindicating or validating what we do out here, but we can all agree that the sentencing to the things that we do and the bad decisions we make is way, way off the scale. We all can agree to that. I will hope so. So when you look at these things, right, and you see everything that's going on in our community, Hosea 4:6, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge comes into play. You know, Isaiah 42:22, we all robbed and spoiled, and the prison houses are filled up. You know, let's even Isaiah 5:13. Let me pull that up for you, because all of this stuff is to show you that there was no lack of understanding. We just haven't been told properly. We haven't been raised properly. We haven't been corrected properly on what it is that we need to do. And what we need to do is to follow some damn direction. We need to man up, woman up, put our houses in order, start making the right pertinent decisions that's going to be beneficial for us as a people. And then we'll start seeing some change. Because once we start repenting, meaning identifying the wrongs of yourself and your community and changing these things, if you don't do that, then you're not going to see any change. It's only going to get worse. But Isaiah 5:13 states that, therefore, my people are gone into captivity, meaning you've been imprisoned. You've been Amendment 13. You've now become a slave because they have no knowledge. Knowledge of what? The laws of the land, the laws of the Creator. We don't have no understanding of neither one of these laws. But yet we put ourselves in a situation where we become victims of these laws. The Creator's laws were made as a witness against us, meaning, yo, I told you rebellious Negroes not to do this, but because you want to do it, I'm going to have Moshe, aka Moses, have the scribes write this down so it'll be a witness against you, meaning this right here is the manifest that's going to show you that I told you what you should do and what was going to happen if you didn't do it. So that way you didn't have an excuse to say you didn't know and you didn't know what the consequences was going to be. I'm not putting you into that situation. The Creator is, you know, emphatically saying, and I'm not saying I'm the Creator, but when you read the scriptures, that's what it's saying. Like, listen, I'm not actually putting you in, you're putting it in here. You agreed that you would follow what I said to do, and you didn't do it. So with that, I told you what the consequences was going to be before you even agreed to it. And then that knowledge wasn't taught to the generation after generation. It tells you, when you're reading the script, it tells you each generation worse or wax worse than the prior generation. Why? Because they started slipping out of holding these things dear to their heart. They started lacking on accountability. And this is what we're doing now. Many people that's around my age know that there was a time where there was accountability within the community. Even though a lot of the same evils and sins was going on, there still was a lot of accountability. You couldn't just outright do it. If you was doing some dirt, it better be in the dark, and the right people better not know about it. And it says, and their honorable men are famished, meaning the honorable men are burnt out. They tired. And their multitude dried up with thirst, meaning we thirsting for the understanding as to why these things are happening to us. But guess what? You don't have to thirst anymore because the knowledge is out here. You just have to open up your ears and listen. And not just listen, you got to also apply. You got to apply these things, because if you don't apply them, what good is the knowledge if you're not applying it? It doesn't make any sense. You know, understanding without application is nothing. It means nothing. But, you know, that's another story for another day. You know, because we can get deeper and deeper into those things as far as what we need to be doing and what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? Because when you look at Romans, let me take over to Romans, because I just want to give you context with a lot of things that I'm saying, just so you know I'm not leaning on my own understanding. And all praises to the elders within these camps and congregations that have been disseminating the information for years. You know, when I came into this walk, um, I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't know, what it was that I should have been doing because I was doing a lot of nonsense out here. You know what I'm saying? I was doing a lot of fuckery, so to say, excuse my language. And, I'm trying to change that too because I know that rubs a lot of people wrong. So excuse me, but it is what it is. There's no right way to say it. But in Romans 2:13, it says, "For not the hearers of the law are just before Creator, but the doers of the law shall be justified," meaning apply. These laws are applicable. They're applicable to your day-to-day life. They're going to save you from many of the pitfalls that we find ourselves in to this day, right now, right? But a lot of y'all don't want to hear that. A lot of y'all want to do your own thing, right? So let me touch on the lack of knowledge and wisdom. Because if you've been listening so far during this podcast today, one thing you could take away is the lack of knowledge of wisdom, what we suffering from. A lot of these things are happening because we didn't have that knowledge and wisdom that our forefathers and foremothers had, which was taught on a day-to-day basis. One of the root causes of the issues of so-called Black America faces in today's time is fundamental lack of knowledge and wisdom. And this is a theme that's echoed in Hosea 4:6 that we read earlier about our people being destroyed because they don't have this wisdom, whether it's because of the glorification of violence that we see in a lot of social media, the perpetration of destructive cycles in households, or poor financial decisions. There is a pervasive absence of true understanding and wisdom. Rather than pursuing education, and a lot of times you have to do self-education on top of the miseducation that you get within our school systems, right? Enlightenment and spiritual growth, many have turned to short-sighted goals and behaviors that bring about their own destruction. This biblical warning speaks directly to the heart of the matter. Without the knowledge of self, of Elohim, and of wisdom, and community will suffer. So it's telling you, if you don't have knowledge of self, and that's something we don't have. Remember, we don't have knowledge of who we are. Our history has been taken from us. We're a people with amnesia. We're operating on a fabricated culture. Our ethnicity is false. Everything about us is false. We have some hints of truth here and there, but if the majority of everything that we know and cling to and hold dear is not what it's supposed to be, then we're living in the matrix. Understand this. We're living in the matrix. We're Mr. Anderson, if I'm getting the characters correct. We're Neo. We're Neo. You understand what I'm saying? And we haven't woken up out of our sleep yet. We haven't had a Morpheus come and ask us to take the red or blue pill yet in many cases. So today, out of many days, because there's many Morpheuses out here that's been offering the red pill, but many of us take the blue pill because we want to stay asleep. We like what it is that we are involved with. We like that we don't have to, take accountability for the actions that we do. Be responsible for the things we want to be Cypher. We want to eat the steak, know what's going on, and say, yo, put me back to sleep, boss. Put me back to sleep. I can't handle it. I don't want to be righteous. I don't want to see our community prosper. I don't want to see my sons and daughters live in a future that's governed by righteousness and divinity. Put me back in the game, coach. What game is that? The bullish game. And we in fourth quarter and don't even know it. Game about to be over. And we about to lose. So think about that. The cycle of violence and black on black crime is perhaps one of the most pressing issues plaguing Black America today. Rather than coming together as a community, there has been a tragic and overwhelming pattern of violence where Black men and women are killing each other at alarming rates. We see this particularly, it got worse when drill music hit the scene. And I always harp on the music because that's an instrument that's been implemented within our community, because music, sound waves. See, this is knowledge that we don't know. Sound waves are very important because sound waves trigger things within the spirit, within this corporeal state that we're in. They know this. Even the scriptures speak on that. That music, harmonics, frequencies, they trigger responses. But we don't know that as my favorite singer, you know, they speak in our life, but when you put certain harmonics together with certain words, it becomes more than just a song. It becomes an indoctrination. It becomes a program. Remember when Kanye was talking about the 808 bass drums and how that rhythm starts speaking to your soul and it starts making you involuntary do things? They know this. The enemy knows this. And this is why they promote and fund certain type of music within our community, so that way that we will be a catalyst to being in prison. That way we'll be a catalyst in self-destructive behaviors. Much poverty, gang culture, and the glorification of hyper-masculinity and material wealth. And we see this. If it ain't about the money, nobody really cares. If it ain't about being the ultra nig, nobody cares. If it ain't about being that big, nobody cares. If it ain't about gang, bang, bang, nobody cares. Because there's many platforms and people that's been screaming out day in, day out, week in, week out, year after year on what we should do, highlighting all of the ill within the communities, and there's a pushback a lot of times. Now, don't get it wrong. There's a growing sect of us that's starting to wake up. There's many of us that's already woke. But even within that woke movement, there's a lot of people that still got a lot of spirits on them that's still doing a lot of wickedness. Because some of them think it's a fad, some joint because it's the end thing, the dues, obviously, or so they think. Some people are opportunists, but at the end of the day, most people got to know that the message has been out there for decades, yet we haven't sat back, did a self-examination to figure out what it is that we need to do and how should we change our current situation. But this is a call to obedience within our community because, like I said, we have war looming on the horizon. And when I mean war, I mean the big one, World War III. Some pundits say that it's already taken place and that we're still in the beginning stages of it. So we need to gather together, right? We got to gather together like the scriptures say, and not do what it is we want to do, but do what has been shown to us to be the blueprint of success. Zephaniah 2:1 says, gather yourselves together, yea, gather together, O nation not desired. We're that nation that's not desired. Every time you turn around, we're the face of every atrocity, every abomination here in America and worldwide. We're the face of it, though we're only remnants within each of these nations. When I say remnants, meaning when you look at the classification that they placed upon us, we're remnants. But once we come back into the knowledge of who we are and throw away those classifications and put on the full understanding of who we are as a people, then we no longer are remnants within these nations. But like the scriptures say, right now, in the nations of our captivity, we're remnants there. So with that being stated, I just wanted to touch base with everybody, because I do some videos, that's kind of more like documentary type videos. And I've always planned to, get on here in a more podcast field because, like I say, Fire Talk Radio podcast, where I could just sit down and rap with my people for a little bit. I don't want to come off as like I know everything. I don't. But I've been through a lot of life situations. I experienced a lot of things. I've talked to a lot of people. I've listened to their experiences. I'm very observant. And I just wanted to touch base with my people just to let y'all know that, even though we're wrapped up in a lot of BS, we still have a window of grace that we can get out of this situation, that we can find ourselves on the winning end of the playing field. But once again, we have to acknowledge our wrongdoings. We have to acknowledge where we went wrong. We have to acknowledge that we need one another. We have to acknowledge, stop subscribing to the detrimental and self-destructive things that affect our communities. We got to be corrective. We got to stand on business. We got to show the youth that we love them, but we got to first love ourselves. And then we got to first, before we even love ourselves, we got to love the Creator. Because in understanding the Creator, then we understand why we need to love ourselves and why we need to show our youth we love them. We live in a reality that's a duality, good and bad, up and down, left and right. So you got to make the decision what side you're going to be on. You're going to be on the side of righteousness and divine thinking, higher vibration, higher learning, or you're going to be on the wrong side of death, destruction, miseducation, and low vibrational thinking. So with that, I just wanted to show through these ancient scriptures that we can see a blueprint for how societies fall into chaos, especially our community when they abandon righteous principles. So-called Black America, like ancient Israel, because that's who we are, many of us, face a crisis, but also the opportunity for redemption through knowledge, spiritual renewal, and collective responsibility is there. As we reflect on these issues, we must consider how to turn the tide away from glorifying destruction and toward a future built on faith, family, and wisdom. So with that, I want to thank everybody that tuned in. Like I said, I just wanted to touch base with y'all, man. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me at Fire Talk Radio Podcast at Gmail, or you can leave a comment below. I respond to all my comments. Please, if you listen to this, definitely like, share, and subscribe at 100. Subscribe to the channel at 100. Because this channel ain't going to do anything but give you bits and pieces to some truth and enlightenment to the best of my ability, in the will of the Most High. So with that being said, I love all y'all. I pray for our success. I pray for the ones that, generally speaking, and wholeheartedness are looking for the light at the end of the tunnel, willing to change their ways. I'm looking for the information and the spirit that's going to guide them there. I pray for your success. I pray for your safeguard and well-being. And for the ones that's hard-headed, listen, you're going to have to get your act together or it's going to be grave consequences at the end. So tune in to another episode, by the power of the Creator, the Most High, Yahuwah Elohim. I'll be back if it's within His will soon. Definitely go to my channel, Fire Talk Radio Podcast on YouTube. Go check out some of my videos, a lot of my shorts, and leave a message, subscribe, let me know your thoughts. With that, I say peace, love, and enlightenment to everybody. Good night.
The best ever, there is no debating. Unsigned or signed, you sign for a loss waiting. If it's competition, but now this is music for respect. Knowledge ain't free, take cash, no check. Yeah. And knowledge ain't free, gotta pay attention. And knowledge ain't free, gotta pay attention. Listen. And knowledge ain't free, gotta pay attention.
Always don't give up, that you always can distribute yourself. And always take pride in that because you have the means to do it. Don't be afraid to do it. Because if you distribute yourself, a company that can do more for you is going to take you in. You know what I mean? So I told you he dropping jewels. Yeah.
Listen, do not be scared to get told no.
Nah.
Do not be scared to get told no.